Welcome to this explainer on sector analysis and wild energies. We're about to turn a blank piece of paper into a strategic, defensively designed landscape. We're talking about designing your property not just for a pretty aesthetic, but for absolute, ultimate resilience. Honestly, what if you could predict the exact flow of nature before you plant a single seed? Imagine knowing precisely where frost will settle in November, where the winds will howl in January, and exactly where a wildfire is most likely to approach from in August. When you map these forces, you gain the power to build highly functional, proactive countermeasures. You stop reacting to nature, and you start directing it. Here's our step-by-step roadmap for today. First, the permaculture base map. Second, overlaying solar arcs. Third, charting wind and water. Fourth, mapping fire threat vectors. And finally, designing proactive countermeasures. We're taking you from raw, on-the-ground observation all the way to a fully protected ecosystem. Let's jump into Section 1, the permaculture base map, setting your canvas. Because before we can design our defenses, we need a foundation. And that brings us to the core concept of sector analysis. I want you to think of wild external energies, the sun, the wind, the fire, as invisible arrows winging their way toward your home from the outside. They are going to pass through your property, whether you like it or not. Our job as designers is to map every single one of those arrows and make a deliberate choice. Do we block it? Do we channel it to use it? Or do we just let it pass right through? So, how do we actually do this? You'll need to grab a compass and head outside. Step 1, plot your house right in the center of your paper. That is zone 0. Step 2, orient your map to true north. And step 3, draw concentric circles radiating outward from the house, based entirely on how often you visit those areas. Zone 1 is your daily garden, stepping all the way out to Zone 4 or 5, which are those wild, rarely visited edges. Once you've got that drawn, we start layering the energies. Section 2, overlaying solar arcs, harnessing the sun. These are the very first arrows we need to map out. Now, what's really fascinating here is that you can't treat the sun as one single energy. It's actually two totally distinct seasonal forces. And you have to map both. The summer solar arc comes in at a high angle. It's hot, it's drying, and it will scorch your property if you don't design shade structures. But the winter sun, it's low, cool, and weak. You actually want to invite that energy in to passively heat your home. Mapping these arcs dictates exactly where you should place a dense evergreen tree versus a seasonal leafy vine. Section 3, charting wind and water, flowing forces. Let's look at our next set of invisible arrows. Just like sunlight, wind, and water are highly directional, step 1 is plotting your prevailing wind roses for all seasons. Where exactly does that bitter winter freeze come from? Step 2 is identifying the extreme winds, those hot, dusty, destructive summer gales. And step 3 is mapping your water. Where does rain enter the property? How does the natural topography force it to funnel or pool? By tracing these natural pathways, we can start designing exactly where to put our earthen dams, swales, and windbreaks. Now, here's a crucial point, and it's a mistake so many beginners make. You do not want a solid wall to stop the wind. If you build a solid block, the wind hits it, creates a massive turbulent overturn, and smashes right into the ground behind it. Instead, your windbreaks must permit 40 to 70% of that wind to pass straight through. By planting a semi-permeable zigzag tree line, you create geometric friction. You aren't stopping the wild energy, you're just perfectly diffusing it across your site. Section 4. Mapping fire threat vectors, defensive planning. This brings us to a force you absolutely have to diffuse if you live in a dry climate. To map a fire threat vector, you have to understand the fire behavior triangle. First step is topography. Fire accelerates uphill incredibly fast because rising heat pre-dries the vegetation right above it. Steep slopes and narrow canyons act just like chimneys. Second is weather. Hot, dry downslope winds will push embers for actual miles. And third is fuel. Things called ladder fuels allow a harmless little ground fire to climb up dead branches and ignite a catastrophic canopy fire. You have to map all three variables to know exactly which direction a fire is likely to assault your property from. Now, we can't change the slope of a mountain, and we definitely can't change the hot downslope winds. But fuel? Fuel is the physical medium of combustion. It is literally the only side of the triangle that we can manipulate. We have the absolute power to design how our vegetation burns, or, much more importantly, how it doesn't. Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, designing proactive countermeasures, from map to masterpiece. With our base map now a spiderweb of energy sectors, it's time to place our defenses. This action matrix right here shows the true magic of sector analysis. Placing the right element in the exact right sector neutralizes a threat while stacking a productive function. Got a cold winter wind sector? Plant a zigzag evergreen timber windbreak. It diffuses the gale and gives you timber. Facing a wildfire threat vector? You dig a fire pond or a hydric buffer in that exact spot. Have a scorching summer sun blasting your windows? You plant a deciduous vine arbor, maybe grapes or hops. It blocks the summer heat, gives you a great harvest, and then drops its leaves to let the winter sun warm your house. It's incredibly proactive design. Let's see how this applies defensively using those concentric zones. Zone 1, right around your house, is your defensible space. Keep it irrigated, use concrete or stone pathways. Zone 2 becomes your hydric buffer, positioned perfectly in the fire sector with ponds and swales to keep plant moisture super high. Zone 3 is your grazing loop. You rotate goats and sheep through there specifically to eat down those dangerous ladder fuels. And out in Zone 4, the canopy buffer, you prune hardwoods 10 feet up so ground fires simply can't climb. You're building an active, living shield against catastrophic fire. The return on investment for taking the time to step outside with a compass and some paper is massive. When you map your sectors and site your countermeasures properly, it's incredibly common to see a 40 to 70% reduction in wind damage to your crops. You'll also frequently see a 40 to 70% drop in overall water usage simply because you're catching and holding water exactly where it naturally flows. It completely optimizes your entire landscape. So your base map is waiting. Grab that compass, step outside, and start directing the flow of nature on your own site. Turn those wild, invisible arrows into the very energy that powers and protects your ecosystem. Because if you can harness the most destructive forces in nature to actually fortify your landscape, what other hidden, untapped energies are just sitting on your property, waiting to be unleashed?